I'm Walter Simmons. I'm 64 years old. In 3 days, I walk out of this prison after 15 years, and I am more scared than I was the day they locked me in. I'm scared of the outside. I'm scared of the silence. I'm scared I don't exist out there anymore. My parole hearing is next week, and everyone expects me to be happy. But all I feel is this cold dread sitting in my chest, heavy as a stone. Here's my regret, the one I only just figured out. I spent my life building a prison in my mind, brick by brick, long before I ever saw the bars of a real one. It cost me my family. It cost me my son's childhood. It cost me any sense of who I was outside of being a problem, a failure, or an inmate. And here's the thing I know now. Freedom isn't just a place you go. It's a person you have to remember how to be. If you forget that person, you carry your cell with you everywhere. Let me tell you what happened. It didn't start in 2010 when I was sentenced. It started in 2009 in my empty apartment in Westwood, Dayton. The divorce was final. My boy, Michael, was living with his mom full-time. I'd lost my job as a maintenance worker. I was sitting there, alone. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was a loud, humming void. I felt like I'd already disappeared. That's when the idea first came. Not for money, not really. It was for something to do. A problem I could solve. You see, a lock I could pick seemed a whole lot easier than a life I couldn't fix. So I started planning. A series of residential break-ins. Non-violent, just property. I told myself I was careful. I told myself I wasn't hurting anyone. But with each one, I was laying a brick. I was constructing an identity. The guy who could slip in and out, unseen. It gave me a purpose, a twisted kind of routine. In my empty life, it felt like control. That false sense of control didn't last. It all ended in 2010 with the flashing lights and the cold metal of the cuffs. They took me to the county jail, and my sister Carol came to see me. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked tired, worn down. The same look our mom used to get back in our working-class neighborhood. She asked me, "Walter, what were you thinking?" I had no answer for her. I saw it in her face. I'd become a burden, a sad story she'd have to explain. That hurt. That hurt more than the handcuffs. They sentenced me to 18 years. I was 49. As they led me away, I thought the worst was over. I didn't know. I didn't know the real sentence was the slow erasure of who I was. The first years inside were about survival, learning the routine, keeping my head down. I was Walter Simmons, inmate number. The maintenance skills I had, useless here. My world shrank to this cell, this block, this schedule. My son Michael and my daughter, contact was rare. The outside started to feel like a story I'd once heard. I was resigned to it. Then, about 5 years in, a letter came. It was a small envelope that shook my entire shrunken world. It was a birthday card from Michael. He was in high school. It didn't say Dad. It didn't say love. It just said, "Hope you're okay." 3 words. I held that card, and I felt myself vanish. Out there, I was becoming a ghost to my own son. A faint memory with a P.O. box address. In here, at least I was a number, a tangible thing. I felt a grief so deep it was quiet. That was the first time I felt the walls inside my head grow taller. The routine of prison became a comfort, a known quantity. The unknown of my son's life was far more frightening. Years kept passing after that. The routine was everything. The 6 a.m. count, the chow hall, the yard, the 9 p.m. lockdown. My sister Carol wrote me letters, maybe once every few months. They were full of news about her kids, about the old neighborhood in Westwood changing. She never asked when I was getting out. I think she was afraid to hope. My son Michael. His letters stayed like that birthday card. Brief, distant. Hope you're okay. Things are fine here. I stopped trying to read between the lines. There was nothing between them. That was the point. I served my time quietly. I became a model inmate because causing trouble meant losing privileges. And the privileges, the library hour, the TV room, were the architecture of my tiny world. I knew my role here. I was the quiet older guy who didn't make waves. Inmate number, that was my name. Walter from Dayton, the maintenance man who could fix a leaky faucet. That guy was a story from another life, a story that was getting harder to remember. You see, I stopped imagining the outside. At first, you dream about it. A real bed, a meal you choose. Then, after a while, those dreams get painful. They remind you of what you can't have. So you stop. You let the dreams go. And without dreams of the outside, the inside becomes your whole reality. This cell, this bunk, this schedule, it became my home. A terrible home, but a known one. I knew every crack in the ceiling. I knew the sounds of the block at night. It was a terrible comfort, but it was comfort. Then they told me about my parole hearing. 15 years served on an 18-year sentence. Good behavior. I should have been thrilled. But that night, lying on my bunk, a cold panic started in my gut. It wasn't excitement. It was pure fear. What was I supposed to do? Where was I supposed to go? I was 64. My skills were 15 years out of date. Who hires a 64-year-old ex-con with a high school diploma for maintenance work? The questions buzzed in my head like wasps. And then came the video call that made it all real. Last month, I sat in the visitation room in front of a screen. A young woman, a re-entry counselor, smiled at me. She was cheerful. She talked about transitional housing, about bus passes, about job fairs for returning citizens. She had a list of resources. She spoke so fast. And there's a program for seniors, she said. They can help with finding a room. I just nodded. My palms were sweating. Then she leaned forward a little, her face friendly on the screen. Mr. Simmons, she said, let's think positive. What are you most looking forward to? When you walk out those gates, what's the first thing you want to do? She waited. She smiled. My mind, it just shut down. It went completely blank. White, empty static. I tried to grab a thought. A cup of coffee? That seemed stupid. Seeing my sister Carol? The idea just made me feel tired and guilty. Walking in a park? All I could picture was the yard here. I couldn't think of a single thing. Not one. My mouth was dry. I could feel my heart beating too fast, right up in my throat. I stammered. I guess, get something to eat? It was a pathetic answer. She kept smiling, nodded like it was a great answer, and moved on to talking about food stamps. But I wasn't listening anymore. The truth had just sucker punched me, right in the chest, right there in that plastic chair. I was terrified of freedom. I had let this cage become my whole world. The walls weren't just around me anymore. They were inside me. I had built them, year after year, brick by brick, by letting go of every memory of who I was before, by accepting that inmate number was my name. The panic was so thick I could barely breathe. I wanted to stay in here. In here I knew what I was. Out there, I was nothing, a ghost. That night, back in my cell, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, the same cracks I'd memorized. And I finally understood. The state of Ohio gave me an 18-year sentence for burglary. That was the punishment. But I had given myself a life sentence of being nobody. That was the trap. I traded Walter from Westwood for inmate hashtag, and I'd done it willingly, because it was easier. Remembering who I was hurt. Thinking about my son hurt. So I stopped. I let my failure become my entire identity. I let it become my home. The fear I felt wasn't about the outside world being dangerous or hard. It was about the sheer, terrifying emptiness where myself used to be. I was scared to leave prison because I'd forgotten how to be a person without it. That night, back in my cell, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, the same cracks I'd memorized. And I finally understood. The state of Ohio gave me an 18-year sentence for burglary. That was the punishment. But I had given myself a life sentence of being nobody. That was the trap. I traded Walter from Westwood for inmate hashtag, and I'd done it willingly because it was easier. Remembering who I was hurt. Thinking about my son hurt. So I stopped. I let my failure become my entire identity. I let it become my home. The fear I felt wasn't about the outside world being dangerous or hard. It was about the sheer, terrifying emptiness where myself used to be. I was scared to leave prison because I'd forgotten how to be a person without it. And you know what the worst part is? I did it to myself. The state built this prison, but I was the one who moved in and made myself at home. I was the one who hung pictures on the walls of my cell, not real pictures, but pictures in my head. Pictures of me as a failure, as a ghost, as a number. I thought about that empty apartment in Westwood. That was the first cell. I was the one who locked the door from the inside. The divorce, losing my job. It felt like the world had taken everything from me. So I took something back. I stole from other people's homes, and with every theft, I was stealing from myself too. I was taking away my own chance to be a father, a brother, a man. By the time they arrested me, I'd already served a year in that lonely apartment. The sentence just made it official. I thought about Carol's face in that county jail, that weary look. I realized now she wasn't just tired of me. She was tired for me. She saw the path I was on long before I did. Our mom had that same look, watching our dad come home from the plant, year after year, his spirit getting smaller. Carol saw that same smallness in me, and she knew where it led. To a place like this, to being a story people tell with a sigh. But the memory that really broke me, the one that came back to me that sleepless night, wasn't from in here. It was from before. It was a Saturday, must have been 2007. Michael was about 10. I was still working maintenance then. He was helping me fix a leaky sink trap under the kitchen sink in our old house. I was on my back, and he was handing me tools, his little face serious, trying so hard to be helpful. I showed him how to wrap the pipe threads with tape, how to tighten the joint just so, hand tight, then a quarter turn with the wrench. Not too much, or you'll strip it. He looked up at me, his hands all greasy, and he said, "You know how to fix everything, Dad." I just grinned and ruffled his hair. "Not everything, buddy, but this I can fix." That was the man I was. That was the man I let go of. Walter Simmons from Dayton, who could fix a leaky sink. A dad. A guy with grease on his hands and knew how to do one thing right. When I got that birthday card years later, "Hope you're okay," that man was already gone. I had stripped the threads on my own life. I'd turned the wrench too hard, trying to fix a loneliness that couldn't be fixed with a tool, and I'd broken the whole thing. And then I came in here and I just gave up. I let them call me by a number, and I answered to it. That's the confession, the real one. I regret the burglaries, sure, I do. But what I regret more is that I surrendered. I saw my son forgetting me, and instead of fighting to make him remember, I accepted it. I saw my sister's disappointment, and instead of trying to be better, I hid from it in here. I took the easy way every single time. The easy way is a cell. It's a routine that asks nothing of you but obedience. It's a name that isn't yours, so you can't fail at living up to it. So now I'm 64. I've got 3 days. And I'm sitting here knowing I have to walk back into a world where I am a stranger to my own son, where my sister is an old woman I haven't truly seen in 15 years, where nobody needs a maintenance man who doesn't know how a smartphone works. The panic is real. It's a physical thing. It feels like the walls of this cell are the only things holding me together. And if I walk out from between them, I'll just come apart, dissolve into nothing. But here's what I also know, sitting here in the dark. That man under the sink with his son, he's still in here somewhere. He has to be, because I remember him. The feel of the wrench, the smell of the pipe grease, the sound of my boy's voice. That's a memory that has nothing to do with being an inmate. It has nothing to do with my failure. It's a small thing, a tiny brick. But it's mine. I built the prison in my mind, which means, I guess it also means I have the tools to take it apart. I just have to remember where I left them. I just have to remember where I left them. That's the work. That's the only work that matters now. Here's what I understand, sitting here on this bunk with 3 days to go. Prison isn't just a punishment for the past. It's a trap for your future if you let it become your whole identity. I did that. I let inmate be my name because it was easier than being Walter, the guy who failed his family. I saw my son forgetting me, and instead of fighting to make him remember, I accepted it. I saw the disappointment in my sister Carol's eyes, and I hid from it in here. I took the easy way every single time, and the easy way is a cell. It's a routine that asks nothing of you but obedience. It's a name that isn't yours, so you can't fail at living up to it. But that man under the sink with his 10-year-old boy, the one who knew how to fix a pipe, He's proof I was someone else once. Someone who could build something, not just break into things. That memory has nothing to do with my crime or my number. It's a small, solid thing, and I have to start with things like that. So my advice to you, whether you're in a place like this or in a prison of your own making, a job you hate, a grudge you're nursing, a loneliness you're feeding, is this: don't make your mistake your name. Don't let your failure become your home, even if it's a familiar one. It's comfortable, in a terrible way, to define yourself by your worst moment. It lets you off the hook, but it also erases you. Fight every single day to remember one thing about yourself that has nothing to do with the mess you're in. Just one. For me, it's the feel of a wrench in my hand, the satisfaction of a drip stopping. For you, maybe it's that you make good soup, or that you can whistle a tune, or that you were kind to a stranger once. Cling to it. That's your first brick. Not for the prison, but for the person you're going to have to rebuild on the outside. I'm 64. I'm scared. The panic is real. It feels like these walls are the only things holding me together. But I'm going to walk out that gate. My plan is simple, because complicated is too much. My first stop is my sister Carol's house in Dayton. I'll sit at her kitchen table. I won't have much to say, but I'll be there. My second stop is a park. I'm going to find a bench, and I'm going to sit on it. I'm going to feel the sun, watch the birds, and I'm not going to do anything else. I have to learn how to be still without the structure of a lockdown. Then I'll look for a maintenance job, something with my hands. It might be hard. They might see my age and my record and say no. But I'll ask. I'll write to my son Michael, too, without any expectation, just to say hello, to tell him I'm thinking of him. The reply or the silence will be his to give. I have to learn how to be a person again, not an inmate. And if I can start that daunting, terrifying work at 64, then you can start wherever you are, in whatever cage you've built for yourself. You still have time. Maybe not as much as you'd like. Maybe you've lost years like I have. But you have right now. And right now is where you start taking apart the walls, brick by brick. This channel, from what I understand, is full of stories like mine. People who've lived a long time and learned something the hard way. If my story meant something to you, if it touched a nerve about a cage you might be building yourself, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe. Hit that notification bell. There are other voices here, other lessons learned, and you might find one that helps you. And leave a comment down below. Tell me, what's the one thing you remember about yourself that has nothing to do with your biggest mistake? What's that small, solid brick you're holding on to? I'd like to read that. If this felt true, hit the like button. It lets the folks who run this know these stories matter. Share it with someone who might need to hear it, maybe someone who's feeling trapped, even if there are no bars on the windows. If you've got a story of your own, something you've learned that might help someone else find their way out of their own personal prison, there's a form down in the description. Fill it out. Your voice might be the one someone needs to hear next. So that's it. Walter Simmons, 64. From Dayton, Ohio, Westwood. Former maintenance worker, soon to be former inmate. Terrified, but walking. The lesson is this: freedom isn't just a place you go, it's a person you have to remember how to be. And you start remembering by finding one true thing about yourself, and then you build from there. Thank you for listening. It helped me to say it all out loud. Now, I've got a bus to catch.